Hey all, welcome to another episode. Today I have an amazing guest. She is absolutely outstanding. I have actually known her via social media. We talked years ago, and have kept in touch ever since. But she is an absolute light. She is so motivational. She has a great story. She's from up in Canada, went from, not being happy with her body to totally transforming herself and ending up on the cover of Strong magazine this year. Her name is Caroline Drury, and I am extremely excited to have her on the podcast and just share about her journey, about her life, about her viewpoints on health, nutrition, and just overall lifestyle and healthy balance. So, really excited to have her on, and I hope you guys absolutely love it as well. All right, you all, here she is, Miss Caroline. I'm so excited to have you here. Um,
Hi.
yes, I definitely just like want to say thank you for taking your time. I know you're a very busy woman. But
My pleasure.
we were just talking, I can't believe that it's been since 2020 that we first like got to know each other, and it's
Yeah.
just been perfect ever since. But I want you to start, like, who is Caroline? Where did you come from? What got you into
Yeah.
health and nutrition? Where are you at now? Like all the things.
Oh, well, it's been a really, really odd journey here. So I will really try to make it concise. I've gotten pretty good at like summarizing it, but I grew up in northern Canada, which, the Yukon Territory, which is the part of Canada that keeps Alaska attached to the mainland, keeps Alaska from floating out to sea. So we like to say that that's our part for, Canada-US relations. So I grew up small town, northern Canada, and my parents always really had me involved in sports. So they did that mostly because it's a small town. They were just trying to keep me out of trouble, which worked. I was a pretty decent kid. But I think I got, really introduced to sport and movement really early, but it definitely fell by the wayside as I got, left my small town, got into life, started being really ambitious. I was actually very randomly a touring jazz singer for many years. But, I always remember really doing a lot of running when I was touring. It kind of helped me stay sane for through months and months of travel. Plus, it was a very cool way to see new cities and see new towns because I would be on the road sometimes for 4, 5, 6 months at a time. Did that for a number of years. And then, yeah, I really wanted to transition into a stable life and uh, ended up working sort of more in PR and marketing for some symphony orchestras. But I did not take care of myself very well during those periods. I was very focused on building a career and I completely let everything go in terms of my health. My binge eating disorder really flared up. I have a very sort of painful history with that. Recovered now, obviously, very healthy um, in that respect. But did what I'm sure you see a lot of women do too. Just run themselves into the ground. Like I ran myself into the ground, and then I moved to Toronto. I was in Vancouver then, and I moved to Toronto. Got involved in the film industry. I was working more the corporate side of things, not an actual film production, but became the chief of staff of a group of 6 film companies in Toronto. And if I didn't think I could run myself into the ground anymore, I proved to myself that I could. So completely was just, yeah, I was very hard on myself. And then COVID happened. And in Canada, um, we were locked down for a lot longer than you all were in the US. And I was in Toronto in an 800 square foot condo. Um, me and my husband and my stepdaughter as well. Although she was like, I'm not staying in this teeny tiny condo. So she went to spend her lockdown with a friend at her cottage, but actually had some fresh air. Um, and the beginning of COVID, I was doing everything like everyone else. A lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people, found it funny a little bit that we were all locked down, drinking a bottle of wine a night, eating a pizza a night. And then my husband, who is brilliant at math, looked at all the statistics and everything that were coming out around the world. And he's like, we're not going to be locked down for 2 weeks. This is going to be like 2 years. I was like, no way, no way. And he's like, yeah, it's going to happen. And he was right. In Canada, we pretty much were locked down for almost 2 years. And at that moment, I pictured myself 2 years ahead with the same habits, 40 or 50 pounds heavier. Like if I thought that this was going to be hard now to get myself quote unquote in shape, I was already, not in great shape. Nothing really stuck for me in my adult life with regards to fitness because I just didn't take that full total accountability that you need. And then after, we talked about that, and he said, if we can't get ourselves in the best shape ever, I mean, gyms are locked down, who cares, whatever. But if we can't get ourselves in the best shape ever with every single excuse that we've ever had taken away, grazing the grocery store aisles, going out to dinner, oh, we're so busy, oh, blah, 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 blah. Because, we weren't commuting, we weren't going to the grocery store, we couldn't eat out, everything got taken away. And he's like, if we can't get ourselves in the best shape ever with every temptation taken away, we have nobody to blame but ourselves. And I remember that feeling that I saw of myself 2 years down the road mixed with that, like, it became glaringly apparent to me that the missing piece was my lack of personal accountability. And I felt like this punch to the gut, like this energetic punch to the gut. And I was like, it's now or never. Like, it was such a pivotal moment. Um, and then right at that time, though, because I had been following Claire Thomas, who is, of course, a first form legend, I'd been following her for many years. Actually, I think I started following her back when she had 5 or 10,000 followers. And I'd always seen her post about the first form 8-week challenges. And I was like, man, like, that's just whatever, silly challenges. But there was one coming up. It was April of 2020. And I was like, I need something. Like, I need like a lifeline here. So I did that 8-week challenge. I held on to it like a life raft. Oh my gosh. Like, I just held on it. I didn't let go. And I was like, I'm going to finish this thing. So I put all of my stubbornness and determination into finishing those 8 weeks. And I did. I'd never finished a challenge before in my life. And my physique completely changed in 8 weeks. At home workouts. It was awesome that, the first form app that they had put like free body weight home workouts in there right when the lockdown happened. And then I got involved in the amazing community, and I am actually I'm kind of stubborn. I'm like, I don't need anybody, blah, blah, blah. But I remember the first day of the challenge, there was one woman who just reached out to me. She's like, welcome to the challenge. It's going to be amazing. And I was like, somebody sees me and cares about me. I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, oh, like, and then you build this community. And so I discovered that I actually need people on this journey. And I just dove right into the community. And that's where you and I met because I applied to be a Legionnaire and you were the first person I talked to there. And then, yeah, then the rest is history. Then I just, I slowly transitioned out of my corporate life because um, I started coaching some women. I got my certification. I started coaching. And that just snowballed into a very long coaching wait list. And so I was like, well, I got to do an app. So I did an app, and now I have an app and one-on-one coaching, and that's it. I hope that wasn't too long. Was that like 3 or 4 minutes? I was like,
It's
hey, keep it
perfect.
short, Caroline.
No, 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 no. No need to keep it short. This is about Caroline, and I love it. And I think it's super relatable. So a couple of things, and like I love your journey, right? Because I have so many parallels, but so many things that aren't. So I think it's just super cool.
Oh,
Um, I think something that I really want to pull out of that is like you pictured your future, right? And I think
oh,
visualization is so powerful, and it can go bad and it can go
yeah,
well. And
yeah,
it's such a powerful tool that people don't utilize. So you pictured
yeah,
what was going to happen if you didn't make the changes. And that's
yeah,
such a tactic that I use with so many people all the time. So
yeah.
I think that's a really powerful thing. And I'm so glad you brought that up.
It's very powerful. And it's also really, it's interesting because actually, no, I was just watching this morning. I don't know how many I'm so fascinated with how the brain works. I know as I get deeper and deeper into this, and women always ask me like, "What's the number one thing?" Like, people looking for hacks or whatever. But I try to turn it around to like some solid information. Like, what's the number one thing that makes someone successful on this journey? I'm like, well, it's not a detox tea or a special anything. I'm like, total radical, like unbelievably, like, oh, accountability
Hmm.
to yourself. And but we don't really want to believe that. And so we actually have a hard time sometimes picturing our worst case scenario because we don't really ever think that's going to happen because we actually all often treat ourselves terribly for years and we're still functional.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, anyone can go to my Instagram and see my before and after pictures. I like to say, where I started my journey and my current.
Yes, because
Because
we're always on
there's
the
no
road.
after. Yeah, yeah, we're always on the road. Um, anyone can see, like, it's just so obvious how much I did not take care of myself. I mean, I really think it was, I didn't take care of my inner world. I had no personal accountability,
Hmm.
living a lot in victim mentality. Oh, this person did, or this, I didn't get this situation, or this didn't happen for me. No, 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 no. So you can see it. It's written all over my face. It's written all over my body. Um, but we can, and you can see, like I treated myself terribly for years, but I was still incredibly functional.
Hmm.
But at some point, so I think that's where the visualization was so powerful, is because I saw myself even beyond that
Hmm.
and how unfunctional I'd be. And also in that moment, I mean, I hate to use this word, but I felt in that moment so ashamed and disappointed with myself. There was like a very intense feeling that came with it. Um, yeah, so it was like all of that paired together, but man, I used it for good. And so, yeah, you're totally right. It's such a powerful tool that, and not that I want everyone to visualize terrible situations at all, but the flip side is also, because I really do
Yeah.
think that you create your situation. So if you're picturing something terrible, have like yourself morph into this beautiful version of yourself that you want to be. Like, that's, we can, you can really take that, sort of doomsday image and almost like a butterfly, or turn it into something incredible. Like, visualize the best version of yourself. What is she wearing? What does she eat? How does she schedule herself? How does she stay organized? What do you smell on that day?
Yes.
All those things. What are you wearing? Like, in my
Hmm.
visualizations now, I am so specific about where I am, what the sounds are that I'm hearing, what I'm wearing, what shoes do I have on, like,
Hmm.
things. Like, I'm so specific because it's so powerful.
It seriously is. I love that. Like, I do the same type of thing. And it changes too. I think that that's something people need to stay open to. It's
Yes,
like your visualizations are going to change as your goals alter and tweak as you move forward. Because, when we first start,
yes,
like our first thing is like, I'm going to finish this 8-week challenge or whatever, right? Because that's how I
yeah,
originally
yeah,
got going too. But then
yeah,
all of a sudden, like you get done with it and you're like, oh, I could dream so much bigger. And
totally, totally,
and it just
yeah,
takes off
yeah,
to this thing. And then all of a sudden, like you're doing the thing you were dreaming about a year ago. And you're like, well, let's make the dreams bigger. And uh,
yeah,
it's amazing. And
yeah,
like, I get emotional thinking about things like that too. And
yeah,
oh, I love it.
yeah.
And I totally am like that too. So like my daughter's 10, she's trying to learn how to write more
Oh,
specific stuff like descriptive, right, with her papers.
yeah,
And I was like, what
yeah,
makes your books so good? And she's like, well, I know I
mm,
can picture it, right? I can see the horse. I can see
yeah,
what color it is. I know how it smells. I'm like, so that's how you need to write. And it's the same way you need to
yeah,
visualize, like just like you were saying,
yeah,
what shoes are you
yeah,
wearing? What smells do you smell that
totally,
day? Oh, I just
yeah,
love that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and how the brain works, the RAS system. I know you're big into that. You
Oh
probably
my
led by
goodness.
let and
Oh,
yes.
I could like talk for hours about that. Oh my God. I'm just so fascinated. I'm so fascinated by it. Yeah, I mean, our current understanding of the brain is, I mean, most neuroscientists will say, like, the brain is like the universe. Like, we know about like this much. Like, we have a pretty good idea, so I'm always eager, what's going to be discovered next or
I know.
hypothesized next. Because it's just unbelievable, the brain's ability to mold and to actually, like, it's an incredibly creative organ.
Oh,
So
I
yeah,
know. Yes. And
fascinating.
something I've been fascinated about this past year because I went through a whole hormone and gut health remodel. We're just gonna go with a
Yeah.
remodel
Yeah.
or
I was
upgrade.
watching you from afar on Instagram.
Yes, it's been a journey for sure, but like
Yeah.
learning how connected the gut and the brain are together and the better things that we do for our gut, the clearer we think, like it's
It's
incredible.
unbelievable. It's
Incredible.
unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. Have you read any Joe Dispenza?
Oh, I have
Do you know about?
not.
Oh, you would. Oh my goodness, you would. And anyone who wants to like understand more about how, what we like, visualization, and more about how the brain works. So he wrote a book that I read about this time last year that completely, it had like changed the way in which I see myself in the world. Because I think along this journey, we're always, you said something really important, like, that dreams and visualizations can change as we change and as we grow. And I think when I read his book, I was at that moment to understand that I can be a lot bigger than I am, bigger in this world, take up more space, follow my dreams. I've achieved so many of them now so far, which I'm so grateful for. And it was like, oh, well, what do I get to do next? Because I have this belief I can do it I never did before. And so Joe Dispenza he's very well known for, yes, his talk, he talks a lot about visualization. Um, that word manifestation really, I don't know, it's gotten so hokey, but really like creating the life you want, like forward thinking. And he does a lot on how to heal the reasons why we're so stuck in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Because so, which is a big thing, because a lot of people, and I did too, had a really hard time seeing where I wanted to go, where we want to go, because the only memory that we, or the only knowledge that we have of ourselves is quitting things, failing and not getting back up, not following through on things, being hurt by people, so our view of the future is so tainted by our feelings of the past. And so he has so much information about how the brain works with all of that and how to, forward think. So I'm really butchering it, but because it's such a big topic. So he's got a great book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself.
I'm writing
And
it
that's the
down
one
right
that I
now.
wrote. Yeah, that's the one that I read last year. That's probably one of his most well-known books, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. It can get pretty out there, for anyone listening. It can get pretty out there, but there's a lot of really concrete information in there. He's got a great series actually that I'm watching right now. Gaia.com hosts it. It's called Gaia.com, is kind of like the Netflix for um, like I want to say like movie, like video series that are a little bit more, yeah, that deal with things like neuroplasticity and how the human brain works, how the body works, sort of energy, things like that. And it's called Rewired. He's got one on Gaia.com called Rewired, and it is all about like how to use your brain to move you forward and break all these habits of that we have of being ourselves that we want to move past, and how
Yes.
to erase all of those, how to move beyond the history that we have with ourselves of letting ourselves down. All the things that I mentioned before. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love. I'm very very in right now. I'm in deep into his work, and then I'll move on to something else, I'm sure, but I just really resonate with how he writes about it and
That's
speaks about it.
amazing. No, I'll definitely have to look into that because it fascinates me as
Yeah.
well. And it's so interesting because I know that Ed Milet wrote about it in his book, and I think Mel Robbins has talked about it a number of times as well. But
Yeah.
just like the fact that you always go back or find a way to go back to comfort, even if comfort is negative, because that is your
Totally.
body's like center. So if
Yeah.
you're used to
Yeah.
chaos, you'll always find a way to create
Yes.
chaos because that is comfortable to you.
Completely.
And it's like trying to learn how to
Completely.
change that is so
Yeah.
interesting to me. Like that's the neuroplasticity coming into play. And it's like,
Completely.
whoa.
Yeah. And actually it's interesting. The episode of this Rewired show of his that I watched this morning, it was exactly about that. And I'm sure you see that a lot with clients. I see it a lot with clients. I see it from my own journey. Chaos is my base point too. That's why when I work with women, which I know you do too, like habits, rituals, what's your morning ritual? What are your like before bed? Because that eliminates so much chaos. And one thing that I think a lot of, especially, we'll talk to women. I mean, there men I'm sure deal with this too, but we're going to assume we're talking to a mostly female audience here. We have so much on our shoulders, and so life can feel very chaotic, and especially as we get more responsibilities, kids, family, money, like bigger jobs, bigger responsibilities. Then we have aging parents with kids, like all it just, as we accumulate more responsibilities in life, it can start to feel more chaotic. That's why, simplifying as much as possible so that non-chaos and calm actually becomes your norm. However, I find with so many women, um, calm can actually be quite triggering. And I hate that word triggering, but it can like trigger them to want to sabotage, self-sabotage. So I don't mean like in a trigger, like, oh, I'm so wounded, but like it triggers something in the brain to be like, this is not good. When there's calm, like the other shoe's going to drop. I have to create the chaos before it happens. Therefore, then I control the chaos.
Hmm.
So that's, so I see that so much, and I recognize that so much from my own journey. So I've worked so hard to make sure that calm is always the order of the day as much as possible. I mean, life is busy and life is, but my baseline now is calm, not chaos,
Yes.
because we can't be our bigger selves in chaos. It is so limiting. It's so limiting and keeps us stuck in the past.
Oh yeah, and it pushes us to that burnout, which you hit when you were,
Oh
taking on
yeah.
the six things, and then I
Uh,
hit burnout when I got a couple of years ago. I really burnt myself out,
yeah,
and so we go through it, but I feel like that's a part of it. Like not that you have to go
totally.
through it. I'm praying that people listen to this like don't go where we went, um,
No.
but like things got real bad real fast, like hair falling
Yeah.
out, there. And
I
I
know
was like,
I got shingles. I got
you got shingles.
shingles.
That's
Yeah.
right. I forgot about
Yeah.
that. And I
And
got like psoriasis
yeah,
everywhere. Oh, mm,
that's just yeah, it's and that's but thank God that the body has these warning signals
hmm. But we
because
have
it's
to know that
incredible
they're
how,
warning signals. That's the thing.
yeah,
You have to
yeah.
accept that they're warning signals.
Yeah. I totally thought I was like because I was only this was maybe 5 years. So I'm 43 now. So this is maybe when I was 38. It's not super like it's not unheard of for someone in their late 30s to get shingles. If
Hmm.
you've had chicken pox, it's always generally going to be that virus is going to be hiding in you. But if you're a healthy person when you're younger, you like in your 30s, 40s, you generally like it's not super common. It's not uncommon, but that's why it's something that happens generally more for people as they get older, is like older into their 50s and 60s when their immune system
Hmm.
it's has been challenged more often, so it's not really at the same defense level. But when I went to the doctor because I got this rash and I was like, what's this tiny rash? And luckily I caught it really fast, so I was able to take the antivirals, which made it go away in a couple days. But and she asked me, she's like, what's your stress level right now? So I told her everything that was happening. She's like, you've got to fix this. This is your first warning. She's like, don't let your body give you a second because it won't be nice.
Hmm. I'm impressed that they
But
even
same
did
for,
that, though.
yeah, I,
Like I had Cassandra Wilder on, or I just recorded with her the other day. I don't know if you've heard of her. She's a hormone
no,
specialist.
I'm going to write
Um,
her name down.
yes, she's fantastic, very holistic style. Um,
Oh,
and I know that's kind of like what you like as well, and
yeah.
she was always, I love the way that she put it. It was, it's not like ailments or issues or conditions, it's roadmaps and puzzle pieces.
Yes.
And your body
Yeah.
giving you signs. These are your puzzle pieces. Figure out what the big picture is so that you can change the picture.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, it's so true. Like there are so many things that were starting to occur that I never put together were all caused by the same thing, which was way
Yeah.
too much on my plate. Um,
Yeah.
so it's amazing. So seriously, if you're listening to this, you have all these different little things that are popping up. It's not just because of age. It's not just because of whatever.
Yeah.
It's warning signs that we need to change something.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's amazing too how great we are at ignoring them,
Hmm.
right? Like until it's often too late. But what I like to encourage in my clients, I mean, well, usually like when clients come to me, or I'm sure it's the same with you, it's like it's because they're kind of at their wits end, like
Hmm.
their things just aren't working the same, like they, and I'm like, well, let's bring some of that like intuition and wisdom back,
Hmm.
like those little whispers that, because I was expert at ignoring that, like
Hmm.
expert at ignoring the little whispers and the little intuition moments, where it's like, oh, I don't think I'm going to do, oh no, I'm going straight down where I know I shouldn't go. But anyways, yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword a little bit, the trying to achieve achievement. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so not to switch things up a little bit, but I absolutely love
Yeah.
this about your page. Your
Oh,
clients. Obviously, you have a ton of
yeah.
successful clients, and I love them. Do you take
Too.
them for like photo shoots? Is that what this is?
So, well, no, so a couple, I did, well, I did take some to for a photo shoot. It kind of happened very organically. Like I kind of just try to listen to them to see what they want to do. And so, I'd had, my clients tend to stay a very long time, which I love. And so I have this one group that I started back in the fall of 2022. There's most of them are still with me, and they've all gone through their diet phases, and they've all reverse diet, and they're maintaining now. And we've just a really tight group of about 20 women. And I'm always trying to find new ways to challenge them, and some of them are really like date goal oriented people, like I need to do a certain thing on this date. Some of them are process oriented. I'm very process oriented. I like to be in a process goal where it's like I need to do these 5 things every day, to really check the boxes. And then I know I'll do the same thing the next day, and that makes me really happy. So getting them to do a photo shoot together, a lot of them had been sort of talking about it, and I was like, okay, enough people are talking about this. They're all really nervous to do it. I was like, I'm just going to push them over the edge. I was like, so I mean, obviously it was by invitation, because it's not
Yeah.
free. But I was like, whoever can come to Toronto, we're going to shoot with this photographer. And I had done a photo shoot with that photographer about 3 months earlier, and it was just so good. And so he was just so kind, and I was like, oh, he's just going to be great with my clients. So yeah, I just told them this is the date we're going to do it. We're all going to meet in Toronto. And also, like I talked about before, which you probably know very well, which you do know very well. I know that community is such a big driver. So I knew that whether they were goal oriented, like, hey, we're going to do a photo shoot on this date, or process oriented, meaning like you got to check these boxes so that you're ready to do a photo shoot. I knew that they were all really wanting to get to meet for them all to meet each other in real life, because we had only ever all been online. So I knew that that one thing would unite everybody,
Yes.
no matter what kind of. And so, yeah, so we just planned a few days in Toronto. I mean, I had lived in Toronto, so it was pretty stress free. And I brought them in to do a photo shoot, and it was just so great. It was
Oh,
so great. I knew it would scare a lot of them half to death, which it did, but we're here for breaking out of our molds. I mean, I know that that's one thing that you're all about too. And
mhm.
it's like, yeah. And so I was like, don't worry, no matter how afraid you are, nervous you are, you're going to feel amazing by the end. And like halfway through your hour with the photographer, you're gonna be like, when am I doing this again? Which
Right?
of course they all were. Yeah. So
Yes.
I try to do things that will just break them outside of totally outside of their comfort zone. So that was one of them.
That's so awesome because I see like your side by side posts with them and they're all
Yeah.
fancied up in the after. And I'm like, dang, where are we going for
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. It's, oh my goodness.
Awesome.
It was such a great experience with them. So yeah,
So
I hope
cool.
to do another one this October, maybe with my app ladies or something,
I
so
love
yeah,
it.
we'll see. Yeah,
Oh
it'll
my
be super
gosh.
fun.
You take them for fancy photo shoot. I take them to a Tough Mudder and we run 13 miles
Hey,
through obstacles.
that's a good one too. That's a good one
Oh
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Here's some bruises and cuts. And don't forget the Neosporin because it's gonna get infected.
Oh,
So
oh my
fun.
gosh.
So fun. I'm done. I called it quits last year. I'm finished. We do different things now.
Yeah,
But
I love
love
it.
that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so much fun. I
Oh,
just had to bring
thank
that up
you.
because it's so unique. And you're right, community is absolutely huge. Like half the people that we have haven't met, and
Yeah.
my best friend, other than my husband, right? Like
Yeah.
she lives in California. I would have
Yeah.
never met her without this community. And we
Yeah.
literally talk every single day. One
Oh,
of my other very closest friends, they both coach with me. She lives in Wisconsin, small town. Like, just would have never
yeah.
met these people without
Yeah.
this. And yet
Totally.
here we are, we're talking about way more than protein and workouts. We're talking about like, what are your kids
Yeah.
doing? Oh, I'm a terrible mom
Yeah.
today. Like,
No.
we talk each other off the ledge.
Yeah. But
So I
we
love
need
that.
those. We need that. And I think at this stage of life, it's something that I talk about a lot with my clients, and obviously you do too. It's like this stage of life can be really lonely
Hmm.
because we graduate from high school, and then we plow through university or whatever we do next. And then it's like achieve, 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 get, and then people start falling out of our lives because we're all so busy. And kids obviously are there, and then eventually it's like taking care of parents and maybe kids at the same time, or one or the other. But it can get really lonely. So that's one of the beautiful things about the accessibility of online communities. I really do love it though when people like, hey, you know what, like we're going to meet in real life, because this
Hmm.
can't just be about being online. But it's great that it is like that, because the world really is at our fingertips. Like I haven't had a bad experience with it. Like it's only been so positive. And so it's nice to know, because when you're doing this stuff in a vacuum, especially when you're trying to change, I think that's a really big part when you're trying to change a huge fundamental part of your life. for my women and for your clients too, it's trying to be healthier. And that comes with habit change. And also, when we try to make a big change in our life, we end up breaking a lot of unspoken agreements that we have with people in our life about what our role is in that life.
Hmm.
Like, I have one client, for example, um, well, I have many clients with the same story. She's just the first one that came to mind, but she's 55 years old. Oh my goodness, like it's such an incredible, incredible transformation, breast cancer survivor. And she, whenever she'd get together with her sisters and she would weigh her food, because she's like, oh, I'm building muscle, like I'm weighing food because I want to build muscle.
Hmm.
And they would start, going into like there's sort of the sisterly judgment, things like that. And then at the earlier, she would kind of back away and go back into her role of being the fixer,
Mm.
because whenever there was sisterly spats, and if anyone was ever uncomfortable, she was the policewoman. She was the peacemaker. So she would forget about herself and go back into that role. And then we got to have started practicing a little bit more like her. I don't want to say asserting herself, but her finding a way to deal with it that was constructive
Hmm.
for her. But it rubs sometimes people the wrong way, because that she broke an unspoken agreement about who she was. Girlfriends, for example, that used to go for wine, for drink a bottle of wine each every Friday night, and then when somebody wants to change, it's like, well, maybe could we meet for a coffee and a walk on Saturday morning instead?
Yeah,
Eh,
I know. It's
that's
so
breaking.
hard.
Yeah, so that's why I think finding the community aspect of when you're doing this work so important. Find other women that are on the same, like, want the same things as you, because they're out there, then they're
Mhm.
looking for you too.
They are, for sure. I would not survive or be where I'm at without the community that we
Oh
built.
my gosh,
No way.
never. Like, when I first joined that first form challenge and that one woman reached out to me, she sent me like a personal video. She's like, welcome. Like, I remember telling my, I'm like, this woman sent me a video. Like, it was just, I was like, who would take the time to do that? But
Hmm.
now even like I do that because it's
Yeah.
like, I know. Or even watching, how Claire, when I was in her Claire Thomas, when I was in her Facebook group for that challenge. I mean, I think I'm still in it, but obviously I don't go in it as much as I used to. But it's like seeing how she made everybody feel so seen,
Hmm.
and that mattered to me a lot. Like, I didn't, and so now I'm really trying to pay attention. Like, when there's someone new that comes into my app, or someone new that starts following me on Facebook or sends me a message for the first time, like taking the time to send someone a voice message instead of just a written message or whatever, on Instagram, like that kind of stuff, those little things, because
Hmm.
you never know what someone is going through,
Yeah. Yeah. That
or
little
those
bit of
little
extra.
things. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Um, I do have to circle back to what you said at the very
Yeah.
beginning. Okay, so I did not realize that you struggled with binging, and I love this
Yeah.
topic just because I feel like a lot of people struggle with it but don't really realize it.
Yeah.
I also, like, I was never diagnosed, right, by
Yeah.
being called a binger, but I definitely was. And
Oh, like,
I'm always curious to talk to people like, how did you get past it? Because everybody's stories and
mhm.
tactics are a little bit different, and my
Yeah.
following knows mine fairly well, but I'm curious to know what yours is.
Yeah. So I will preface this, which I like to do every time I talk about it, in that I'm not a therapist. This is totally based on my own experience. So if there's a woman
Hmm.
listening who is silently struggling with emotional eating or binge eating disorder or anything like that, like, please, please get professional help,
Hmm.
because that's what I did. That's what I
Yes.
did. So I'm just going to talk about my personal experience.
Okay.
Where it came from for me was that I, like I mentioned before, my based on a number of things from childhood and my past and stuff, my set limit was chaos. My the way that I operated in the world, it was all based on chaos, not calmness, and that was a compiling of many, many, many issues. And within that, I always thought that there was something wrong with me. I was living a very shameful existence in that. And what I now know, I didn't realize it was shame. I always thought I felt guilty all the time because I wasn't doing enough, wasn't being enough. And I learned through professional help that I just had carried so much shame, meaning that I didn't think that deserved to, I wasn't worthy of anything. Like, I learned that I wasn't worthy. And I proceeded to keep chaos in my life because that held me back, held me down. It gave me a false illusion of control. And eventually that all that chaos would create, and it would wind up and wind and wind and wind and wind and wind, and it would create incredible amounts of mental tension. I released mental tension by binge eating.
Hmm.
So it was never about I that was just me. Some people release it by gambling addiction, by alcoholism, whatever.
Hmm.
I would release it by completely hiding myself. I would like book days off of work and I would just binge eat, binge smoke, binge like you anything that wasn't a drug.
Hmm.
Um, but I would just hide away from the world because it was just like a massive release of mental tension covered in shame by like I pretty much felt bad for existing.
Hmm.
I just did. And um so yeah, so what I learned was I have to bring calm back into my life. That um binging for me was a release of mental tension, and I had to let go of the shame and build a very healthy internal world.
Hmm.
The way that I did that is I learned about self compassion, which I had never even heard of before. And there's another great book. If anybody, well, if anyone is living a life shrouded in shame, there's a great book called "Healing the Shame That Binds You" by John
Okay.
Bradshaw. Healing the Shame That Binds You. That's a great book. It completely made me understand. Like it was literally me on a page, and I was like, oh, this like whole book is written about me. So obviously, like I'm not abnormal. Like this is
Mm-mm.
kind of normal if there's like a best-selling book. I was like, oh, so these are learned behaviors. I can unlearn them then.
Hmm.
So that made me understand that there's actually it was all learned. Okay,
Hmm.
great information. I can do something about that. And then my therapist really helped me work on self-compassion because I just loathed myself. I was like, I couldn't stand to be in my own skin. Um, and so yeah, so self-compassion by Kristen Neff was a book that was pivotal for me. Kristen Neff is just she's probably the first really early researcher of self-compassion and how much of a driver, how much more of a powerful driver it is than self-hate, because we
Hmm.
can't shame or belittle ourselves into being better people. Now all that to say is that self-compassion is a two-sided coin. So there is the loving soft self-compassion, which I really needed a lot of for myself at the beginning. So she outlines in the book how to really work with yourself and work with your inner dialogue to create that safe space where you can just be kind and soft. But as I got farther along in my journey, I realized, and she talks about this too, that there's another side, which is actually like fierce self-compassion, like standing up for your inner self. Sometimes that looks like, if you want to hit the snooze button, when you promised yourself you're going to get up in the morning and go for a workout. The fierce self-compassion is like, no, 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 girl, you are getting up. You made a promise to yourself. You're getting out of bed. You're going to do that workout. So that's different than the soft self-compassion, which really just constantly you're asking yourself, what do I need right now? And it's never food, by the way, unless you're actually like legit hungry and you're past your 3 p.m. meal and you got your macros planned and everything. Sometimes you need a solid meal, but it's never binging. Never binging is the answer. So that was really it. Figuring out what the root was what was the driving force behind it, how to release the mental tension, how to care for myself. And then fitness just began to play a really big part in that, just because every time you go into the gym, you can do something you've never done before. You can, even if it's like dumbbell, or dumbbell curls, and you lift one more pound than you did the week before, you still did something you've never done before. And those teeny tiny incremental wins build an incredible amount of mental resilience. And
I
then
love it.
so you can just build from that.
Yes. Oh, yeah, everybody's story's so different. I love that though.
Oh,
Like you you had to go a lot deeper than I did. Mine was a bit different of a journey, and I feel
yeah.
like that's just super important to always highlight that not everybody's journey is the same. Um,
No,
but you're likely not the only one living yours either.
completely.
Right? Like there's always going to
Mhm.
be a resource for you. You are not the
Yeah,
only one going through this. Like for me,
totally.
it was always like sneaking into the basement to eat all of the things so nobody would see
Oh,
me.
yep.
And oh my God. And it was always like not always emotionally attached. I remember one time I ate so much just because it was my cheat day.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
hated
Oh,
that.
hate that word. I
I
know, I know,
hate
I
it.
know, I know.
Um, I
Hate it. Oh,
we've grown so much.
oh, oh
uh,
man. It just
but
like,
laying,
ah,
I remember laying on the bathroom floor contemplating throwing up, and I was upset because I didn't get to finish the like dozen of cookies and ice cream that was sitting on the counter, and I'm like, what is wrong
for
with me
sure.
right now?
Oh, I used to like throw, oh my gosh, totally. Like I used to throw donuts away and then I'd pull them out of the garbage
Yeah,
and I'd eat them.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
The,
incredible. Like the things that we would do. And it's just like, yeah, it's wild at how much of a drug that can be. So yeah, so all is that to say, if they're like, it's still, there's so many people who are sitting alone and thinking that there's something wrong with them. Like, no, you've just learned some destructive behaviors. Like, yes, we have to process the inner world because someone dumped garbage on our lawn. We got to clean it up. Like, we learned these behaviors from somewhere.
mhm,
We don't have to go and play the blame game, whatever. I blame that's also when like blaming anybody for anything, like I had to really learn to just let it go because that was not going to fix anything. Nothing was going to happen if I kept blaming that person who hurt me. Blah, blah. It's like, oh my God, okay, I'm over that story. I'm so over it.
mhm.
It's just not constructive. And also, I wanted to say to people, which I really try to highlight too, when you're working on this, people are like, well, just go into positive thinking. I'm so over positive thinking. I'm so over it. I really try to highlight whether you don't have to be positive all the time. That's way too much pressure to put on yourself, but you have to always remain diligent to be constructive with your
Mhm.
thinking. You
Mhm.
don't have to be positive. You just have to be constructive because there's a really big difference between being constructive and destructive. And also, yeah, like, and then anyone who is living has a lot of shame in their story and all that stuff. It's like you can't even really imagine thinking positive thoughts. Like it's just like what a foreign concept. But like constructive thinking might be like, well, okay, I'm going to drink an extra 500 milliliters of water today. I think that will make me feel better. And then doing it. It's not a positive thought, but it's a pretty constructive thought that leads to a small, teeny tiny action that's going to get you somewhere.
Absolutely.
So
I love that comparison too. And positive thinking, like, yes, there's a place for it, but if you're so
yeah,
far away from it, then you just feel like a fraud trying to do it. So,
completely,
and
completely,
then you just feel stupid. So it's like, yes,
completely.
constructive thinkings, constructive thoughts, whether they're not
Yeah.
necessarily positive, will get you somewhere. I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that. Thank you for that.
Oh,
Um,
you're welcome.
so perfect. See, this is why we do these.
Oh, I know. Well, I learned so much from talking to all of you too.
Yes. Okay, so I'm so glad we went over that. I do have to ask, how in the world did Strong Magazine happen? Did they seek you out? Like, how did this happen?
Well, so what happened? I so Paul Bucetta is the photographer who is the photographer for Strong Magazine. He's the photographer that I initially did, who I brought my clients to, and then I done a photo shoot with him in June of last year. So we first met in June of last year, and I remember him asking me, he's like, where have you been? Oh, I've just been doing my thing. And he's like, we need to do more for Strong. And I was like, oh, okay, fun. Well, he's like, let's stay in touch. So we stayed in touch, and we started talking about like some other things, with regards to, me doing some other things adjacent to Strong Magazine because he was rebuilding some of the, I guess, like I don't want to say like outreach, but like in real life things with Strong Amazing, like strong camps and things like that. I know they've sidelined that for now, but and then when I took my clients back in October to do the photo shoot, I mean, he and I had obviously kept in touch, but he's like, okay, we got to talk about this seriously now. And he'd initially invited me to do it last fall, but I was like, I just wasn't in the place to do it, and also the magazine would have been launched before my app came out, and I wanted to do it. I wanted to have the magazine come out after my app. So yeah, we just I became friends. We just stayed in touch, and then he was like, he really, I mean, he's been in the fitness industry in the Strong Magazine. I mean, Catherine, who's the editor in chief, I mean, they've been around this industry for a long time, and I think they felt like I brought a fresh take on how I see things. I like, the cover magazine is the topic is, or profile is titled "Make It a Joyful Journey," and they just felt it was really a refreshing take. So after Paul got to know me a bit, and I met a number of the people from the team there, and they just thought I had a really fresh take, and they invited me to do it.
That's
So,
so cool. I saw it
so
came out, what, a couple months ago, the post did. And I was like, holy crap, look at her go. Like,
it's crazy, right?
so
From
cool.
starting with like my little 8 week challenge or in my condo. Like I literally, when I started, anyone who wants to go look at my Instagram, I mean, you have to scroll a ways back, but you can see me working out with
Time.
bands and
Yeah.
yeah, and like mops and
Broomsticks.
brooms, like broomsticks, and I'm getting smacked in the face with bands and all this stuff. And to go from that and to go from that to go from that to Strong Magazine, I was like, I feel pretty proud of that.
Yes, as you should. I love that. It's so cool. And for those of you that do want to follow Caroline, I'm gonna put her Instagram handle and her website link below. Obviously, we're both in the same profession, but she lives, northern, like she lives Canada,
Yeah, I'm
United
in the
States.
center of Canada. Yeah.
Right? And I know I have a number of Canadian friends and followers. So you guys, if you
Oh.
want to go catch up with her, if that makes more sense for you, please do, or refer your friends to her because she is a powerhouse.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
I
Thank
do like
you.
to end these with like, and you're not going to be surprised, what would be if you could give, and we've given so many nuggets of amazing advice today, but if you
Mm.
could give one of your biggest pieces of helpful advice, a nugget, or something to say to someone if they're feeling like we used to feel,
Yeah.
what would it be?
That's a really good one.
It is.
That's a really good one because there's so much. Um, and I don't want to say something cheesy like believe in yourself, I want to give somebody something more concrete. The big turning point for me after I had that moment when I felt like I got punched in the like that energetic punch in the gut, like you got to do something about this. The next follow-up action that I took. So this is the advice that I would give, and I try to give this always to the women that come into my app or anything. Everything you've done before that hasn't worked, you have to throw it out the door. You're going to want to go back to it. You're going to want to go do keto. You're going to want to go do blah, 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 XYZ and do your detox teas and slash and burn your calories and be starving. And then you'll just, whatever, like you're going to want to do that. Don't. That's what I did. I was like, okay, I've never learned to eat. I'm going to just eat 5 even meals a day and I'm going to see how long I can do that for. No restriction. And guess what? I didn't binge
Mm-mm.
because I was feeding myself too, right?
Mhm.
So I would tell people, whatever you've done before, throw it out and don't do it again. Figure out a way that you can start in a way that you've never started before, meaning that if you don't know what it ever feels like to not be like super restricting or like totally over the top with food, go right down the middle. Figure out what it feels like to be properly fueled and don't start on Monday. Don't you dare start on Monday. I actually just gave this advice to a woman who was asking for help in my Facebook group. And I said, don't you dare start on Monday. I want to know a day you're going to start that is not Monday. Make it like Thursday at 1:13 in the afternoon or
Mhm.
one, yeah, or something like that. Because I'm like, you cannot start on Monday. All you're going to do is just binge all weekend or overeat all weekend. So that's what I would say. Don't you dare start on Monday again. And don't do the things you've already done before that haven't worked.
Oh, it's so good
Find a
because
new way.
yes, because just like we talked about earlier, you go back to like what your center was, even if it isn't the right
Completely.
choice, because that's what you know,
Exactly.
even if we know it
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Yeah, no, no. Yeah, that's what I did. Like I started eating 5 even meals a day, and I did that for as long as I could. I never felt restricted. And my day one every week was never Monday. It was always Sunday.
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
and that actually in when I first started, to be totally honest, I'll reverse. My day one was always Thursday or Friday. Because you're never bad on day one, two, and three. Bad in quotation marks, right?
Hmm.
Um, so that's what I would say.
I
Don't
love that.
recreate the bad stuff and never start on Monday.
I love that. So good. Thank
Oh,
you so much for being here.
no, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's
Of
so fun. It was
course.
so nice to catch up with you.
I know we need to do this more.
Yes, I think so. I think so.
All right, lady. You have an amazing rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.